Hello. Hey, I told you all we might have a surprise guest, and sure enough, we do. So all of you who got here kind of on time or even early, the sun is setting on the semester, but the sun rises on the chancellor. So I'll let you just say something and say hello.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks. Look, thanks to this whole community. Engineering is such an open system on this campus. I love it. I was over at the Richmond Field Station and looking at the clubs building stuff, and then I hear that most of the clubs are about 25% engineering, 75% students from other parts of the university. That's just a wonderfully inclusive and connective way for a college to be. So super proud of engineering. Super proud that people like Patrick and Vicki are here, and so I just wanted to say thank you, and we'll bring Patrick up on the stage. Go Bears!
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you very much.
So we've had a pretty incredible semester.
Sounds like it.
And I cannot imagine a better last speaker than Patrick Chung, because you, of all the people that we've had this semester talking about disruption, are focused on students and have been consistently focused on students. So Patrick at Xfund, and here's my introduction in case you're wondering, Patrick at Xfund is focused right now on funding students at Harvard, Stanford, MIT, all those lesser known private universities. Are they all private?
Those ones are. And of course, Berkeley, I'm sure that's the punchline. No. I hope that's the punchline, because it's true.
Okay, fantastic. I love it. That is the punchline then. And before that at NEA, which I always have to look up, it's New Enterprise Associates?
That's correct, yes.
And doing that. But he has had this incredible background. I need a little bit of audience participation here. I need you all to raise your hands. How many of you have are studying environmental sciences? Anybody? Anybody who's willing to admit they're studying environmental sciences? One. I see two people over there. Fantastic. How
Berkeley
many
has really changed.
I know. How many people are studying business?
No.
How many of you are studying law?
Thank God. No more lawyers needed.
Hey, no one is studying law, or how many people are pre-law? Anybody in class? How many of you are thinking about, how many of you are engineers who are in the class right now? So right now, a majority. We have about 40% engineers in the class. I ask you that because Patrick has studied environmental sciences. He's studied law. He's studied business. And if I can find my little, here we go. He has this incredible background, which anybody would love to have, working at McKinsey, but we'll talk about that a little bit more, working at NEA, now working at Xfund and actually helping to create Xfund. And you've had some incredibly iconic friends and supporters who you've worked with along the way. So I'm looking forward to us talking a bit about your journey and some thoughts that you have for the students. So Patrick, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Let's give a big round of applause. Pull out my questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, Vicki, Chancellor Lyons, and class.
Yeah, yes. Let me go in. Now, you all have been extremely helpful. Even though it was Thanksgiving break, you all did respond to a little questionnaire that I had. And there are 3 questions that have come out at the top from what you have. The first question I'm going to ask is in that darkest orange. Can you all hear me? I feel like I'm yelling, so I should talk a little more quietly. Can you hear? Does it make a difference?
It is rather.
Chung, can you turn up those mics just a little bit? Is that a little bit better? Who's my friend who's right in the middle in the back row who's going to ask a question? Can you hear okay? I can hear. Oh, you can hear also. Well, I guess both of you are. I like that. I'll go into these second questions that are in the lesser orange a little bit later on, but the question that the students wanted you to address first, if you don't mind, is what skills would you advise students to learn now to be competitive, and how should they use that in the job market, especially because you're focused on students and frankly, all of your academic background.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Xfund is an early stage venture firm that was actually spun out of two of the world's very best venture capital firms, Excel and NEA, and in partnership with Harvard University. Even though co-founded by Harvard, we've been open to everyone regardless of university affiliation from the very start. And so we have and want to continue to back people exactly like you from the world's very best universities like Berkeley. On this question, we get asked this a lot, and ever more so today, because everyone believes that AI is going to steal their jobs, and that we're seeing, the inkling, the starting of that actually start to happen. And so the short answer, Vicky, is I have no idea. But here are some just initial kind of instinctual thoughts, which is you want to do something that actually the machines will take the longest to learn. The flippant answer that many people give is like something like being a plumber or an electrician. And although it's flippant, I think it's actually quite true, because I think it'll take quite a long time for a robot to be able to fix your broken pipe or rewire this old house's electrical system. But in places like this, really the question is like, what intellectual work can you prepare for? And so I think the right answer, probably a little bit too general to be useful, is you have to think like, what can I do? What can humans do that will not be done by machines? And here are some just kind of little less general examples. One is influencing other people. At the end of the day, for at least a little longer, we humans will control the AI, will control the machines. And so influence, socializing, forming relationships. I think one thing that the machines are currently not is independent, and they don't really have agency. And so this is something that will be an inherent human quality for a lot longer than, say, writing a term paper or coding, a website or something that the machines can already do. And so I would really think kind of what is the essence of being human. A few years ago, I served on the external board of Harvard called a visiting committee. And a few years ago, we just saw the rise of STEM majors, everyone wanting to study computer science, and we saw the commensurate decline of social sciences and humanities. And I had just joined this committee, and I thought, I was just like, these English majors are never coming back. And the dean at the time, who was a computer science professor, he said, no, I totally disagree with you, Patrick. Those English majors are coming back. And I thought to myself at the time, you're just saying that to be political. You're a computer science major. You're benefiting from this trend. But I realize now that he's totally correct, that the humanities and the things that the machines really can't do very well are the things that will be, I think, the most durable through the next few years.
So most of the students in here, not everybody, is either intrigued by the thought of becoming an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. Just out of curiosity, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship or are currently an entrepreneur, could you raise your hand?
Whoa, wow.
It's a lot of people. And you've invested in a lot of different types of entrepreneurs. I heard you in an interview talk about the different companies you've invested in and the backgrounds. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit also with us, just to kind of, for a level of comfort, the different types of entrepreneurs that you've invested in.
I don't think they're different. I don't know if I would kind of categorize them into typologies. But the types of people we are lucky enough to work with are, number one, because we're a universities-focused venture firm, we work with people who already, by some definition, are already one of the top 0.0000% of the entire world. In this classroom, if you look to your left and look to your right, you are sitting in the top 0.001% of the country and the world in some way. And so we're lucky enough to work with these people to begin with. And so that is already kind of a rarefied pool. Amongst that pool, the things that we look for are, number one, the people who actually take a step in a different direction. When you graduate from Berkeley, you will have so many different offers. You will be inundated with choice. You know, McKinsey and Goldman and Google and like all of these places want to hire people like you. And for that subset of you who turn your life on a back, turn your back on a lifetime of like almost guaranteed riches in one of those big tech or management consulting or investment banking jobs to do the riskiest thing possible to start a company, that already self-selects you into a very even more rarefied group. So the fact that you make that leap is something that we try to encourage you to do or teach you to do or make more possible for you to do. That's number one. Number two is that we look for people who are very persistent. When you start a company, starting a company is so hard. There will be times when you go to bed not thinking but knowing that you will go bankrupt tomorrow. And most people, 9 out of 10 people, when they know that, what they do is they gather their team together and they say, I'm really sorry, I tried my hardest, you're all laid off, we're going bankrupt tomorrow, it just didn't work out. The ones that you've heard of, the Googles, the Apples, the PayPals, the Ubers, they are the ones who went to bed knowing that and they woke up the next day and they just kept going. They figured out how to make their companies last another hour, another day, another week, another month, and they just kept going. And so we look for that type of persistence. Sometimes it's very easy to see. Some of you may have had really challenging backgrounds where you like literally came here and swam off a boat and then like worked in a kitchen for years to get to Berkeley, and that's obviously persistent, or maybe you survived cancer. But in other cases where you didn't face those kind of obvious difficulties, we can still try to figure out if you're persistent in other ways. And then third, as Peter Thiel has said, we look for people who, because we're early stage investors, who really want to do something 0 to 1. In other words, invent something that has never been invented before. That 0 to 1 is a very different motion from 1 to N, which is just to make version 6 a little bit faster and cheaper than version 5 was. And so those are the kind of the three things that distinguish the founders that I think have been the most successful in our experience.
You mentioned Shervin earlier, and Shervin Pishavar, do you know Shervin by chance?
Yes.
When he was here, he said he looks for people who have a chip on their shoulder. And I'm wondering, is there a question that you ask founders to kind of figure out if you can't tell from their background if they have a tendency to be persistent? Almost like an interview question?
Yeah, no, we don't. What we do, because I think interviews, like before this, Haley was telling me how the class is graded. You have to do a video afterwards, and I asked Haley, is that because if you were to write a term paper after this, that term paper could have been written by ChatGPT. And I thought, okay, video is probably less. Again, it will last longer in the human realm than in the machine realm. Today, interviews, you can just read these. You can read the perfect answer to any question, memorize it, and recite it.
Yeah.
And so what we do is something very different. We'll never ask people, give me a time when you were persistent. What we do, because we're based on these campuses, because if you look at our website, xfund.com, you'll see the most central professors and faculty are on our advisory board. We will ask their professors, we will ask their college roommates, tell us how hardworking is this person? How persistent is this person? We'll do lots of references, and these references are really unlike traditional professional references because in most cases, for you guys who are undergrads, you probably have never had a full-time job before. And so there's not any former manager I can call. There's just the people who are sitting around you, the faculty who taught you, and those are the people that we get the real stories from because they haven't prepared for an interview.
Do you still get real stories? Because now it's hard to get real stories from anyone.
Well, I think so because our faculty are trusted members, and we have these long-term relationships with them.
Nice.
And in general, if you do references about anything, I think there are on-list references, names that you provide the person who might hire you or fund you. But we all, if you're providing us their name, they're probably going to say good.
Yeah.
We still call them, but we do the off-list ones.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of asked you to take a step back in your life, what you were like as a student, just like all these people here. And what I appreciated is, even though this was you as an older student, I think, when you got your JD MBA, there you are, way on the right. And I'm wondering if you can tell us about this picture and what it means.
So yes, that was my JD MBA graduation, and I guess the overwhelming emotion or memory I have from this is, thank God it's over, but also it was sad. That day was kind of bittersweet because if you do a law degree, it's 3 years. If you do an MBA, it's 2 years. When you do the JD MBA, it's 4 years. And so at the end, all of your friends have long graduated. And then these are the only people who are left.
Are they all JD MBAs?
Yes, this was our JD MBA class. There were 10, this was a bumper crop. Usually there are maybe 2 or 3 a year, but it kind of is counter-cyclical to the economy. So,
in case anybody's wondering, those red folders connotate Harvard. What are the different colors of the? I know that they're called something special. I can't remember.
The hoods.
The hoods. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Those hoods. So I think the rule borrowed from ancient England is that you wear the hood of your then most senior degree. So if you were a college, if before this graduation you went to college, then you wear kind of the undergrad hood. If you got a master's degree, you wear your master's hood. You wear whatever is the kind of penultimate step to this.
I'm intrigued by this because also before that you got your AB, which I've didn't know. What does AB mean?
It's just in Latin for BA.
Is that what it is?
It is actually that, yes.
Your AB at Harvard, and then went on to Oxford to study environmental sciences. I'm wondering what happened to make you go over to business and law. Like, what was the thinking? And by the way, in case you all don't know this, I think personally that Patrick is almost a perfect person, including the fact that you come from Canada.
Oh, thank you.
Everything, really. Such a good
kind.
person.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
I think you're pretty perfect too.
Oh yes, we'll see how that goes.
Stop chuckling.
Yeah, well, but why environmental sciences? What made you shift? What happened after you graduated, and how did you get to Oxford even?
So as Vicky says, I came from Canada and I wanted to study government, which is political science, because I was interested in game theoretic models, game theory, just game theory as applied to human behavior. I guess, in those days, like government was the place. But then when I started in the government major, at the beginning, the professor was like, this will be a very basic class, but of course not too basic. We know, all of you know the difference between Congress and the Senate, and everyone laughed. Of course we do. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I don't at all, because we don't have a Congress in Canada. And so I got out of that, and I landed in environmental science actually because I was interested in a class of commons dilemmas, actually, I think Garrett Hardin, did Garrett Hardin teach at Berkeley? Garrett Hardin was this guy who wrote a 1968 paper called Tragedy of the Commons. I think he might have taught at Berkeley, but I might be mistaken. And so I was interested in these resource problems, and environmental science was a good application of that. So I ended up, I went to study environmental science to do game theoretic models of resource problems.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. And then did you, I don't know if you went directly from undergrad to Oxford or?
I did. I was very lucky to win a scholarship to go to Oxford, and so it was a free ride, and I
But it wasn't a Fulbright?
It was called a Commonwealth Scholarship, which is for Commonwealth citizens. It is very similar to what in America is called the Marshall Scholarships, which allow Americans to go study in any university in Great Britain.
And after doing that, and focusing on the environment and sustainability and resource management, you got the ultimate job at the time. It is the ultimate job, and it certainly was at that time, at McKinsey. How did that happen?
So this dovetails with one of the other questions I saw up there, which is, what is your greatest mistake? Shall I answer that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the same answer, I think. So I like many of you, to get to Berkeley, I was a really good high school student. I got good grades. I had extracurriculars, like I played squash, like all this. You had all this stuff, and then I got into Harvard, and then I worked really hard there, and I worked my way up, and then I got into, I won the scholarship to get to Oxford, and then I worked really hard there, and all along the way, I just felt like, and I think it's even more so the case today, I just felt like I was on this ladder, and you today and back then, you are trained to be this kind of automaton machine that just climbs ladders. And the most successful of you, which you guys are, because here you at Berkeley, can climb those ladders faster and more efficient than anyone else, and sometimes shove other people off the ladder to get ahead. And in life, or in school life at least, people keep putting rungs on your ladder, and you're like, oh, that's the next rung, I got it. That's the next rung, I got it. It was almost in every case, like, you want to go to med school? Oh, well, I know what to do. I'm going to major in these things. These are my prerequisites. I'm going to get my MCAT score. And like, ladder, 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 ladder. And for me, the ladder that I was on, because I wasn't pre-med, was, just like Vicky said, I got the ultimate job.
I mean, at that time it was. I don't know if anybody's interested in going to consulting, and good for you if you are. Anybody? Consulting? Is that where you want to work? That's great.
I didn't know what consulting was. And you know, when you're an undergrad, nobody knows what consulting is because you haven't done it yet. And it sounds so amorphous. But the way McKinsey, BCG, Bain sold this job is, we only hire the best and brightest. It is the most prestigious thing you can do. Look at all the people who are successful, who have done this, and you want it. You want it. And so I was like, yes, I want it. And there was the rung. And so I leapt into it. Not really, it was an unthinking choice, basically. It was a very unthinking choice. And I got there, and I really hated it. Some people really love it, but I really hated it. It was the most soul-crushing, awful work. You know, this won't be the worst things that have been said about McKinsey, because if you read about McKinsey, like 2 of the CEOs went to jail for insider trading. They like the Sacklers and like opioids, like, you know, warlords. Like, there have been many books that have been written about how not nice, you know, McKinsey was in those days, or perhaps still is. But for me, one kind of anecdote is that I had just come out of school where I did like these econometric models, and I was working for this big tech company, and basically the project was how many people we were going to fire. And so again, like, really soul crushing. So I built this chart, and this chart had a bunch of columns, and it was the number of dollars, and in the end, the number of dollars would translate to how many people we would have to fire, because that was the number we'd have to save. And so I built this chart. And then my boss looked at the chart and she said, round to the nearest $10 million. And I said, but if you do that, the compounding error of those roundings are going to mean that we're going to fire a whole bunch of people we didn't have to. And she said, shut up, just do it. And I was like, but. And I was like, why would we do that? And she said, it just looks better. The CEO does not want to see your decimal points. It just looks better. And so I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, how about this? How about I make it look better, but then the total, which is the number that is going to be actionable, I make that the real number. And she said, no, you idiot, because then when they add up the rounded to 10 columns, the total will look like we can't add. And so it was like a whole bunch of crazy situations like that, and we were staying up all night to do this. And so I was committed for 2 years. After, I think it was 11 months or something, I just left because it was wrong. And for like this like studious Asian kid who had like climbed every ladder perfectly, it was very scary because I thought, oh, what do I do now? This ladder that everyone else wanted to be on, I just got off it. And now what? And so I very serendipitously bumped into a friend of mine in a parking lot, and he said, we're going to start a startup. Do you want to come with us to start a startup? And I was like, really? And so I said yes, because I had nothing else to do. And that set me on the current path.
So you've had an interesting path. And I will say that you first came to my attention because Harvard was promoting the talk that you and Sam Altman had. And while Sam Altman is very interesting, I found you so intriguing and so interesting on that conversation. So I thought you were so great about sharing pictures. I thought you could also talk a little bit about when you and Sam met, because it was a long time ago. This is Sam Altman, who has OpenAI and was at Y Combinator before that, and I guess Looped before that.
Yeah, that's right. So I had just started. So when I guess when I graduated JD MBA, I was recruited by New Enterprise Associates (NEA), which is I think is still the largest venture capital firm in the United States. And I just started there, and I was like the youngest person there, and so I covered universities. And so I went onto the Stanford campus where there was a business plan competition, and a 19-year-old sophomore named Sam Altman entered it, and he had this idea for this mobile location-based app called Looped, which back then was called Radio. I think at this point it was called Looped.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, this thing looks amazing. And so after his pitch, I said, Sam, if you want to do this for real, I can show you what it would mean. And he said, well, what does that mean? And so, we kind of talked about it. I said, here's what would happen. And in those days, you couldn't get, because it was a location-based service, you did not have a GPS API on the phone yet. So you couldn't access location on the phone, although the phone could give you location, but you had to go through the carriers. And so before we even wrote a check to Sam, before we had any formal relationship, I said, Sam, I know the CTO of Sprint, one of the big carriers. So why don't we fly out to Kansas City and meet him and see if he would he can make this thing work, and if so, it'll make it more possible for you. And so Sam and I, a 19-year-old Sam and I, flew out to Kansas City. We met the CTO of Sprint. I told the CTO that I was bringing in an amazing founder, and if you've ever been to the corporate campus of Sprint, it's this palatial place, and the CTO's office is like layer after layer of anteroom and assistants, and this beautiful like all glass thing overlooking a river or something. And the CTO strode in, and he looked at me and he looked at Sam. He's like, "Where's the founder?" And I said, "This is him," because Sam was 19 years old then, but he looked 12.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
he still looks like he's 19 years
Yes,
old.
he is blessed with great genes. And he exercises regular, and he's a vegetarian. So I think that also helps you maintain good health. In any case, and the CTO just looked at me and thought, oh my God, you're wasting my time. But as soon as Sam opened his mouth, you could just see the look on the CTO's face. The CTO just thought, I see what you see here. And that was our first carrier deal. So the CTO committed, and then that made it possible for Sam to start this company. And so I had just joined NEI, I had just started this career in venture capital. Sam was my very first investment ever, and I was Sam's very first investor ever. And so I ended up serving on Sam's board for almost 8 years and helping him build the company.
And Looped became, what did it become?
Looped was acquired by a company called Green Dot.
Green Dot.
Yes.
And so what I was getting such a kick out of is that thing where I put the arrow in there, that's called a flip phone. And I just thought you could tell like when this picture was taken a little bit by the phone, because when we go to these further pictures, besides the fact that both of you look like you've had quite a bit to drink there, but I mean, a little bit, I think it's kind of the picture.
Very perceptive, Vicky.
Well, sorry.
Yes.
I don't know. It's that,
No, it's true. There's a martini in my hand,
all right,
I think.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. But this one now, moving forward to the age of was BlackBerry was after the flip phone?
That was a BlackBerry, yes.
Yeah, so that's called a BlackBerry, and that was before there were iPhones. But obviously, I guess you all work out together. I'm not sure if you're...
I think that was at I think NEA had a CEO event or something, and Sam was one of our CEOs.
So as I said, I first became aware of you because you had that conversation, and it seems like, Sam seems unflappable. I don't know him, but from seeing stuff to the point of being almost robotic. But you showed him something, which was that early business plan for Looped, and he was like thrilled and surprised. I'm wondering if you would ask him a question now. What would you ask him about, business-wise, not personal, business-wise?
If I could ask Sam a question now, business-wise, I guess. He's a close friend, so I think I guess when you're the CEO of OpenAI now, at this point in time, everything has gone right, and it's kind of like surfing. It's kind of like the timing is right. He was in the right place after kind of years of investment in this research lab called OpenAI. And once the wave comes and you're in the right place, you just have got to surf that wave, and make it last as long as you can. And so I don't think there's anyone in the world who's going to surf the wave better than he is and will. But the thing that I ask him is, in addition to the technical,
I didn't prepare you for that.
No,
question.
That's totally fine. But in the technical sense, I don't think he's going to do it. He's going to surf this wave. But I would ask him, Sam, are you taking the time to actually enjoy the ride? Because it is the ride of a lifetime, and I really hope that he is soaking it all in and actually enjoying it instead of just,
It hasn't been a smooth ride.
Robotically,
it's been up and down and kind of crazy. So I hope he maintains his 12-year-old or 19-year-old looks and that it doesn't age him. But I thought this was fun. You also have an incredible set of connections. I put this in as a title of Icons of Disruption and Support because I was feeling like it was both of them. Will you tell us who's in these pictures? Maybe people know already.
Well, I was lucky enough to be Anne Wojcicki's first investor in 23andMe, and that's her. And then this is Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston, who are the founders of Y Combinator. What have you,
you know them on such a different level. What do you find intriguing about them?
I think what I find intriguing about them is, Silicon Valley is so amazing because you can basically land here, and that's why so many people come here. You don't have to know anyone. You don't have to. You just have to be part of the community, and the community actually does really embrace you. And so, at a certain point, I just thought, wow, we know all of these billionaires and all these now famous people, but they all seem so ordinary, so down to earth. And someone said something that I think is so true, which is, the reason that is the case, because you think of, a multimillionaire, a billionaire today, a trillionaire soon, as someone who is just kind of this otherworldly figure. And they all seem so down to earth because they didn't grow up that way. If you met someone who grew up a billionaire, they will have this, I have met some of these people, they do seem otherworldly because there's a type of, I think, suspicion that they were just born with, that what do you want from me? Everyone's just trying to get something from me. But when you don't grow up that way, and when it came to you later in life, after you were formed as an adult, I think you still maintain the person that you were, and you actually have a sense of real gratitude in a way that someone who grew up, as a billionaire doesn't have. So I think that's a very kind of humanizing thing.
Yeah, that's lovely. You were kind enough to share many pictures, but I kind of really like this one in particular, and I was wondering what the story is behind this picture.
This is a debate at the Oxford Union. So the Oxford Union, I think, is one of the world's oldest debate societies, and I was asked to come back and participate in a debate. This one, I think, it's not shown here, but they pair you with people, and so on my team was Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. There was Eric Brynjolfsson, who was a professor at MIT and now a professor at Stanford, and against a group of other people. And we just had a kind of intellectual debate. Yes, it's a debating society. So you have these resolutions. I think this one was, be it resolved that technology will advantage the everyone, or not just the few but the many. Yeah. Some generalistic statement like that.
It was at Oxford, but there are a lot of Canadian and Americans. Sorry, I had to
Yeah. This was in a program that they run called Silicon Valley Comes to Oxford.
Oh, so interesting. And I see it's very formal.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
nice.
It is.
And also at Oxford, one of those lovely buildings. I mean, I guess it was in...
it was the Union. They have their own building, yeah.
Stained glass. So nice. All right, let's see what I have next.
Okay, here we are. Okay.
We're gonna take about 5 more minutes. I have 1 or 2 more questions, but then we will get ready for some open Q&A. But as you went to NEA, and then here you are at Xfund, takes on the Boston scene. I'm wondering if you can tell a little bit. That's Patrick Dempsey, who I guess is an investor. Maybe?
He was, you asked me to find photos of myself at NEA, and when I went into the office, it was just kind of like an office, and I thought it was not very photo worthy. So actually, in all of my time at NEA, I could not find a single photo of myself in the office. And it was only when the movie star showed up that we took a photo.
Oh, all right.
So unfortunately, that's my NEA photo.
But was he there for investment purposes?
He was there because he had an interest in digital health, and so we just, because he plays a doctor on TV, I guess, I don't know. He was doing research or something. And so we just walked him through a whole bunch of digital health investments. And then we took a photo in front of the NEA sign.
Nice. Well, with what you're doing and the students that you've invested in and what you've looked at for NEA and what you're looking at for Xfund, I am curious from your perspective, what are the things that have been most surprising to you that you're investing in now? What do you think will be big? Our theme has been disrupting an industry. I'm wondering, we heard, if you all remember, that your biggest ideas are going to come when you're basically 22. Does anybody remember hearing that? Pretend like you did. So you're working with 22-year-olds.
Yes.
Just wondering what what you're able to share in terms of big or surprising ideas.
So I guess two broad categories that are, I think everything goes in waves, and so here's where we are in the waves. Obviously, generative AI. So every flavor of generative AI. So we have a company called Open Evidence, which was founded by a Harvard PhD and postdoc in economics, actually. So not anything to do with health sciences. But he built a AI doctor, and it is the only AI doctor to pass the U.S. medical licensing exam with a perfect score. Over 40% of U.S. physicians now use Open Evidence every single day, which is just remarkable. ChatGPT also passes the U.S. medical licensing exam, but with a score of 56%. So, this is an amazing AI doctor that is basically gives you a lot, and it doesn't hallucinate. So if you ask it a health question and it can't answer, it will just say, I don't have enough data to answer your question. It will not make something up. And so all flavors of generative AI, I would say probably 65, 70% of all that we see is some flavor of generative AI. The probably 20, 30% is defense. I feel this is a little bit sad, but the world seems to be preparing to go to war. We're decoupling from China, and so we have a company called Vulcan Elements, founded by a recent business school grad, who is making a 100% U.S. sourced and manufactured rare earth magnets company. Rare earth magnets, of course, are in everything, your phone, fighter jets, these microphones. Yeah. And we've been reliant on China for them for decades. And so now the U.S. has realized that's a real national security risk, and is pouring billions of dollars. So our company, Vulcan Elements, just signed a $1.4 billion deal with the U.S. government to build factories in North Carolina that will make rare earth magnets. And so all flavors of defense are probably second to generative AI. But what we do at Xfund is really not, there are some venture firms that have sector theses. They say, okay, here's my thesis about what's going to happen in the generative AI space, and I will look for companies that do this. Because we were co-founded by a university, because we work with universities, we're focused on the founders. And so as long as you're talented, as long as you make that leap to start a company, we will follow the talent wherever it leads. And so where it's stampeding now is generative AI and defense.
You said that they are working with a U.S. government contract. Do any of those companies focus outside the U.S.? I'm just curious. Is it or always U.S. focused?
Well, the U.S. is the largest market for most of the companies that we back, and so generally it's U.S. first, and then only when there's kind of saturation of the United States is in sight do they then think to themselves, okay, now we're going to open a Europe office, or now we'll expand to Canada.
And how do they work with you? I mean, normally if you're working with, well, actually, how does it work? do you fund them? Do you and then advise them? What does the day-to-day look like in collaborating with you all?
Yeah. Well, because we were co-founded by a university, Xfund is very unique because most venture capital firms have a single bottom line, which is we need to make returns for our investors. And we are definitely that way as well. But we really have a double bottom line, which is educational. And so we will meet founders just like you guys who want to start a company, even when we know right off the bat that there's no way we're going to invest in you because you're you're doing biopharmaceuticals, which is something that we don't do, or you're doing material science, which is something we don't do. We will work with you for, in some cases, years to help you develop the idea and then to place you into the arms of the best investors for you. And so what it looks like to work with us is when you have even the inkling of an idea. You don't have to, people often ask, what do I need to have before I can speak with a venture firm? In our case, the answer is just the interest, the inkling of the interest to start a company. The founder of Open Evidence, he again was, we were his very first investor, Sequoia, Google Ventures, Kleiner Perkins, Thrive Capital just invested in our company at a $6 billion valuation is the last round. He is doing enormously well. But he was just, he was headed to be an academic. He wanted to be a tenured professor of economics. And when he met us, we showed him this new possibility. So you just have to have the interest and just reach out to us. It's very simple. My email address is just patrick@xfund.com. And say, here's who I am, here's what I'm thinking about, and then let us draw you into it and show you this whole interesting world. And you may decide, it's not for me, I'm going to McKinsey instead.
Well, it brings me to my next question, actually. You seem to love what you're doing. What do you think makes you so darn good at it?
Well, I am very flattered by that. But also,
you just have an energy about it when you talk about it.
I do love it. I
mean, you had energy when you talked about McKinsey also.
Negative energy.
Different energy.
Yeah. So what I love about it is the fact that we get to rove through the Bay Area, meeting the most interesting, engaged young people from universities, trying to understand what you want to build, trying to figure out if we can help you, and then going along for the ride. And they're amazing rides. Even when they don't end up well, they end up unconditionally well in terms of accretion to you, in terms of experience, learning, formation. It's just an amazing thing to be part of. So that's what I really love about it. As for doing well, I mean, venture, yes, it's certainly, we've been very fortunate to invest in some truly amazing companies, which have done very, very well. But I think we have to approach this job with a lot of humility, because in early stage venture, even if you are at the very, 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 very top of the game, even if you're the very best venture investor on earth, you will invest in 10 things, and 6 or 7 of them will go utterly bankrupt. And the 3 or 4 that don't go bankrupt will pay for the 6 or 7 bankruptcies and a whole lot more. So that's the very, very best investors. And so even the very best of us are more often wrong than we are right. And so sometimes, people ask, what did you see in Sam Altman, or how do you pick them? The answer is we try to pick them, but we're more often wrong than right. And so I think to do this job requires a type of humility to recognize that.
It made me so happy when you told me that Xfund's first name was Experiment Fund. And I think there's a secret to being willing to experiment, to expect that when you experiment, you either get positive results or something that proves your hypothesis or something that doesn't prove your hypothesis. And there's no failure. It's just something proves it, something doesn't. So it's nice. I want to open it up to questions from you all. I have a couple more questions up my sleeve, but if you all don't mind, introduce yourselves and take it away. Well, here, you all are up front, so I'll just do that.
Hey, Patrick, thanks for the talk. I know you get a lot of founders reaching out to you to get in the Xfund, and you focus on like the top schools. How are you having a footprint in these schools? What's kind of like your approach to collect all this talent?
So we have 2 full-time partners here on the West Coast, 2 full-time partners on the East Coast in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we, and then we have, if you look at our website, we have a bunch of faculty, a bunch of students. And so we are deeply embedded in the kind of the life of the universities. We are parts of many classes. We have, at Stanford, we have this program called the Xfund Fellows, which teach ethics, startup ethics. And so the universities, because again, we have this double bottom line mission that's both, yes, for profit, but also educative, we've just become integrated and a trustworthy partner. And so I think, I'm not the universities, but I think that the universities think of us in two ways. Number one, they recognize that a subset, an increasingly large subset of our student body wants to go into entrepreneurship. And so how can we have a trusted partner to help them do that and do things that we, the university, cannot do, like actually invest money? That would be a huge conflict of interest for the university, for a professor to say, I'm going to write you a check and invest in your company, and yes, you haven't gone to class, but I'll just give you an A anyway. Like, that's a huge conflict of interest. So we are able to do things that the universities aren't and remain a trusted partner, and we earn that trust every single day. And secondly, professors in the university don't really want to be in the position of, oh, tell me about your company. Oh, yes, you're doing a early stage material science company based in, Berkeley, California. Okay, let me think. Oh, yes, you know what? The best investor for you is this person in that fund. And that's not their job. And so to have kind of a one-stop shop to say, oh, you're interested in starting a company? Great. Go down the hall, talk to Xfund. Even if they're not right for you, they will put you in the right hands.
I'm going to pass the mic back. And who's next?
Here.
All right.
Yes. Hello. Yes, my name is Fernando Grandes. I'm pursuing my executive MBA here at Berkeley. My question to you is, before you write that first check, you mentioned that you look for returns on investment. What is your top non-negotiable criteria when you're investing on a startup?
So the question is, what is our top non-negotiable criterion for investing in a startup?
Correct. Thank you.
Honestly, there aren't that many, but the singular one that comes to mind is integrity. We cannot invest in someone that we cannot trust. And so the times when it's been the most clear that we should not invest or that we need to divest, get out, is when we have found that and this does not happen at all frequently, thank God. But in times where we feel like the founder and CEO is not being honest with us or is hiding things, that is the number one easy pass.
Can you talk about the importance of co-founders? We talk about the importance of co-founders?
Will I talk about oh, yes, sure. So co-founders, well, statistically, here's the thing. If you have a co-founder, you just have a higher chance of success. So unless you know for certain that you want to be a solo founder in your company, I would go off and find at least one other co-founder. People, and here's the reason why I think. It's because, again, starting a company is so hard. There will be days when you're just ready, it's just too much, and you're just thinking, I should have gone to McKinsey. I just need to quit this thing and get out while I can because it's so hard. And in those deepest, darkest days, a co-founder will say, chin up. It's not that bad. Let's keep going. And then there will be days when your co-founder, she's like, oh, this is awful. How did I do this? I hate this. I need to quit. And you will then talk to her and say, no, stay on track. It'll be fine tomorrow. And so if you've got that kind of moderating force, it's more likely that you're going to stay on track and keep going. Whereas when you're a solo founder, the day you decide to throw in the towel is the day the company ends. A lot of people think to themselves, okay, I am a technical founder, and therefore I'm going to need a non-technical, salesy founder, or vice versa. And they want someone who looks perfect on paper. But I think that's deeply misguided. If you just look at the types of the most successful co-founders, the one thing they all have in common is they have these deep bedrocks of trust. I don't think it's any coincidence, and indeed we've structured Xfund this way, that most successful co-founders have found each other in universities. It's because your best friends here at Berkeley are kind of like siblings to you who are not related to you. They will be your best men and your maids of honor at your wedding. They're the ones who have held your hair back as you vomited into a toilet. You will be able to trust them in a way that's very, very, very rare. And so even if you study the same thing, even if you're identical on paper in all respects, that is a much better co-founder than someone you know not as well, that you don't have as much trust with, that is like a perfect complement to you on paper. I often think about Sergey and Larry, the founders of Google. They were both in the same Stanford PhD program. They both had almost exactly the same research interest. If you've ever met them, they're very similar person-wise. They're both kind of, quite introspective, shy, quirky. They're basically like almost twins. And yet they made such a powerful combination, not because they were deeply complementary, Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, Mr. Technical, Mr. Non-technical, Mr. like front end, back end. No, because they really trusted each other and they argued vociferously, but at the end of the day, just like arguing with your sibling, you'll still love them at the end of the day. You can have very, very, very horrible arguments, but at the end of the day, you're still bonded in a way that's rare. And those are the best co-founders. You can hire for all those other skills that the two co-founders or the three co-founders don't have.
That's great. Thank you. Who's next?
Right here.
Hello, my name is Manuel Molina. I'm 4th year studying electrical engineering and computer science. And you talk about how you have, let's see, roots in different ecosystems like MIT, Harvard. But as your experience comes, what is one mistake that you see in the students or first-time founders that repeat over time? And what would you warn them to to success and continue?
So the question, if I can just summarize, what is the number one mistake that first-time founders make? Is that right?
Yes, or the most common.
The most common. I really love that Paul Graham saying, which is that most startups die not of homicide, but of suicide. And the most common form of suicide is the founder breakup. And so back to what we were talking about with co-founders, I think the most common error that first-time founders make is they want to design the perfect founding group and company on paper and not actually in practice. Because especially all of us living around here, if you just, search online or ask ChatGPT, hey, what should I do to start a company? There are all kinds of mental models and actual models out there for how you should start a company. And it's not like a recipe book where you kind of just follow the directions and go for it. It has to be, my mom always said the most important ingredient in a dish is love. And what is love? I mean, you have to put something into the cooking that is not measurable. And that's the thing that is missing.
Gosh, sorry. That's poetic.
Oh, thank you.
What is love?
Okay. Hi, right here. My name's Karsten, and I'm a 3rd year. And my question, so we've heard a lot about the things that you've done with the knowledge base you've built. I'm curious about what paths you followed while you were in undergrad before making the jump from student to the real world. So can you talk a bit more about where you put your time and effort while you were in college?
Yeah, sure. So this is a recurrent theme, and I believe it is a real universal truth that's becoming more and more difficult to follow, which is when people are surveyed after they graduate from university or after they graduate from business school or after they graduate from any school, and they are asked, what is the most important thing you gained from your education? Over 90% of respondents don't say, oh, I learned finance, or I learned electrical engineering, or I learned this. It is the relationships that I formed in college, and it is 100% true. Because back to our very first question of what can you do to kind of protect yourself against the tide of the machines don't form friendships, they don't form relationships, they don't form this type of connectivity you have with another human. And those are the most durable and most valuable things that you come away with. And that's in large measure why people, I think, really want to come to great universities like Berkeley. It's not, with all due respect to all of your professors, not really actually the classes themselves, because a lot of people can teach you about supply demand curves and electrical engineering. It's because, again, look to your left and look to your right. By some measure, these are the top 0.0001% of the world. And you have the great privilege of existing here for 4 years with them. So I think it's a huge mistake to hole yourself up in a lab or a classroom or in front of a computer and just study, and ace your exams and not meet anyone. I think the real thing is to get out there and form these real relationships that will last with you for the rest of your life and that will continue to, I think, if you wanted to put it in like very cold economic terms, although I don't think you should think about it like this, continue to accrue and compound through your life.
I have a question for you all. This class is not for a grade. It's a pass-fail class. Except, in a way, there is a grade for me, and there's a grade for Haley, and there's a grade for Taiba. And part of that is about making connections. We really care about you all connecting with somebody. I am curious, from the time you all walked in here, this happens to be our last class, but in late August, I guess, we had our first class. Late August? I can't even believe that. Have you all met anybody in this class that you didn't know before? Just with a show of hands. Have you met anybody? I'd say we got maybe a passing grade, 50%.
I think that's definitely an A. You very well done.
See? You are so nice. I would say, probably a C- so far. Think about it. You still have time for us to get an A. You still have time to meet each other. So as you're thinking about your projects, keep doing that. Who's the next question? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Patrick, for the insightful speeches, especially about like the facts and the benefits of having like a co-founder. And I think most of us are feeling these, especially during like final projects, where sometimes we reach the point where we're about to crack, and then we found the support from our colleagues. So, and I think in real life that's even more important. First, my name is Farid. I'm a master's student in the product development program, and I was just wondering, like, about the aspect of graduate, like after being an alumni. Is reaching to Xfund an option, or is it just going to be sticking to being a member of a certain university? Especially that sometimes people, I've known like many people in my life that have founded their companies based on a failure that they have seen in real life. Like they've been working for a certain company and they've seen so much issues in that industry, and then they headed to find a new company. So is that an option for alumni from certain schools to still reach Xfund and be part of your efforts towards growing the community?
So very easy answer, absolutely yes, absolutely. We have no restrictions, formal or informal, about the people we can work with. I mean, we have a natural advantage being based in universities, but if you've graduated 10 years ago, totally fine. If you never graduate from any university, totally great. Come talk to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question going back to kind of that connection.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
I'm Vivian. I'm a third year here at Berkeley. And I was curious, as someone who's gotten many intensive degrees and works with founders who went to elite colleges, what do you think the value of a degree is, rather than not getting a degree and maybe just putting your head down and doing research and building technical skills without a degree or post-college?
I think it is just like the question here, which is, yes, you're totally right, Vivian. You can learn all these skills and acquire all the knowledge yourself, certainly cheaper, probably faster, online or in some other venue. But what you can never do is exist in a community like this, form these relationships, and teach yourself as well. You know, there will be difficult times here. You will have arguments with your best friends. You will disagree with people. You will have to convince people to do something that they actually don't want to do when you first started talking to them. And all of those skills, at the end of the day, are so much more valuable and so much rarer and can only be taught by actually doing them. And so I think the value of a degree, especially at a place like this, is well worth it. But only if you kind of recognize what you're playing, like what the actual value of this thing is, and get out there and form these relationships. And this is this is the nation's premier public university, and it happens to be also really amazing because it's so large. So you've got like tons of graduate schools. You've got there's just like many more excellent people around here. And so what an amazing opportunity. So that the value of the degree is that it's not. I would not compare, Economics 101 to the online version. Yeah, that's not the accurate comparison. In online Ec 101, you're not actually learning the life skills.
Who's got the mic? Who has the mic? Yeah.
The mic. I don't know if is it still on?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mona. I'm a senior. My question for you is: you're talking about you have 2 locations, I guess, for Xfund here in Silicon Valley and one on the East Coast. I'm wondering what the startup culture differs between that on the East Coast and that in Silicon Valley, and if you can still be at that same level of success, or do you usually see those startups moving here to find that, amazing success, like Google, for example?
Yeah, such a good question. So it is very different. On the East Coast, here in Silicon Valley, we feel like, there's like big tech tech, big and small, is so dominant, and it is very true. But living out here, you also forget like one of perhaps last generation's great American capitalist achievements was all of American high finance. Like the securitization of so much, the stock market, hedge, like all of that stuff. And for generations, that whole empire, just like the tech empire out here, but that whole empire out there was really powered by these elite East Coast universities. The Harvards, Yales, MITs, they have fed for generations the titans of Wall Street and private equity. And so that culture is still very dominant out there because those industries are still very dominant and very important or at least large in the scope of the U.S. economy. And then out here, of course, it's very different. Like we don't have a lot of hedge funds or investment banks or management, like those types of places. What we have here is Apple and Google and OpenAI and startups and venture. And so the cultures are very different. So I find like out here, we don't have to convince people or teach people as much what it means to start a startup. Whereas back east, you take someone who you like this, this economics postdoc that we backed in 2 companies now. He just had no idea. And yet you could see he was incredibly entrepreneurial, incredibly competent. And he had that itch, but he didn't really know how to, it was an itch that he didn't really know where does that itch fit in my life? He didn't really know that. And once we taught him it, because he's a smart guy, he thought, aha, then a little light bulb went on in his head. And he was like, oh, I see. So this entire like giant sucking sound that's going to Wall Street or academia is actually just one of the sounds. And actually there's this whole other thing. There's the roar of the Pacific Ocean. And he decided to go that other way. And so they are very different, but I feel like a lot of people, especially out here, talk about it very judgmentally. They say, oh, those investment bankers and those finance people, they're like yesteryear. But when you're there, you don't really feel that. A lot of those finance people look out here and they think, okay, you guys are just crazy. You guys are all crazy. This is the center of the universe. You're just like playing around the fringes with Snapchat. And so it is a very different culture.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I am here as a study abroad student. So for most of us, as we are in excellent schools like Berkeley, Harvard for you, and Oxford, the expectations are high, so we do not like to make mistakes, and if we do, it hits hard with us. So could you tell us of one mistake you made which you think really benefited you in your life? Something which you think you willingly make again?
I think So the first part of your question troubles me because you are, what year are you? You're an exchange student, but you're an undergrad?
My senior year.
You're a senior. So I would be surprised if there was a mistake that you could make now that would truly like affect you for the rest of your life. I mean, obviously, yes, you could murder someone and that would be very bad. But like in the normal course of your student life, there are no such mistakes. And when you examine, like just choose anyone that you think of as successful or whose life you wish to emulate and actually just read their biography, you'll notice something, which is that nobody moves in a straight line up and to the right. Everyone has bumps. And it's those bumps that actually make them successful. And so, you know, I think the thing that I experienced is like I was saying, like I was on this ladder, and the ladder seemed perfectly linear and wonderful. And then at a certain point, you're like, oh, wait a second. What am I doing on this ladder? I don't want to become and just name it, surgeon, accountant, lawyer, big tech, whatever. I don't want to do that. I want to do something. What am I doing on this ladder? I was unthinkingly climbing it. And so I think the biggest mistake you can make is you can unthinkingly put one foot in front of another, one hand in front of another to climb this ladder. The most important thing, the most important question to ask, and this I think used to be the case in most good universities, was you went to college to, quote, find yourself. And the finding of yourself is to determine what ladder you want to be on. That's much more important than actually climbing the ladder itself. Because once you determine what ladder you want to be on, then it becomes obvious. But I think a lot of people, because they're trained from youth to get into Berkeley, and the way you get in there is you climb this particular ladder, they don't really know themselves. And so they get way up the ladder, and then all of a sudden they're like 40 years old, and they're a corporate lawyer, and they hate their lives, and they're like, I hate this. What brought me here? And so that's the biggest mistake I think you can make.
So I know we have a couple more questions, but I'm hoping you can ask Patrick after we kind of finish, because there are a couple of things, 3 things I would like to do at the end of class. The first one is ask you a last question, and that is kind of in line with what you were saying, Anne, and that is, what would you tell your 18 or 19-year-old self? Where were you at 18 or 19?
Oh, I had just started college.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, you didn't start at 16?
No.
Woohoo! One thing,
No.
great.
Yeah. So 18 or 19-year-old self, I would say, I would probably give myself the same advice I've been giving you, which is your grades really don't matter that much. And you should just have fun and really get to know people here and realize that you can acquire all the skills and the knowledge later. And what really matters now is, I mean, I'm not just saying like party, but I'm saying like, you know, put yourself in difficult personal situations, because those difficult personal situations, the arguments that you have, the like breakups that you have, those are the things that actually the machines will not be able to do for a really long time. And those are the things that actually will be valuable, therefore.
You know, you do not disappoint. Thank you very much.